School Facilities Commission business meeting. It's Wednesday, June 25th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Our Platte County School District office, Wheatland, Wyoming. I would entertain roll call now.
All right. Commissioner Coughlin.
Present.
Commissioner Ferens.
Present.
Commissioner Kashelhofer.
Present.
Commissioner Thayer.
Here.
Commissioner Thorne.
Present.
Commissioner Van Mark.
Present.
Frank Carroll for Superintendent Dagenfelder.
Here.
Chairman Tarter.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you very much. Obviously, everybody heard the commission and roll call, so they know who we are. If the staff would please stand up and introduce themselves, and I think I'm going to go around the room and have all the guests introduce themselves. And if any of our commissioners are on via virtual, they please leave their pictures on the cameras on, if it's all possible, if the service enough, so everybody can see that. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Dale McConey. I'm the director for the state.
Carlson, Facilities Division Administrator.
I'm Rexus. I'm the project management supervisor for schools.
Laura Anderson, I'm the Finance and Operations Administrator.
Travis Hoff, Public Information Officer.
Shelley Lovato, Office Manager.
Doug Kenny, Wyoming Attorney General's Office.
Amber Leach, Policy Planning Supervisor.
Tina Fernandez, Policy and Planning Coordinator.
Vito, Policy.
Andy Knapp, Executive Director, Laramie County 1 School District.
Roy Decker, Facilities Director, Sheridan County Schools.
Rich Merrill, FEA, Project Manager.
Maureen McCaffey, FEA.
Thank you very much, everybody, for introducing yourselves. I welcome everybody today. I'm going to try to keep it moving because we have quite a bit area to cover. Director, would you like to make any comments to start with?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly would. They introduce themselves. We got some new folks in the back who are planning staff. Been here just a couple of months.
Stand up, so we are.
So Tina is actually Christine, but we have another Christine. So she said, well, people call me Tina, so we got Tina and a Christine unofficially at the office. So anyway, I think Lance Johnson is online also, and Lance is the longest serving member of the school facilities department. Been with the department for 19.5 years, something like that.
Yeah, 19.5.
19.5, and then I think total Lance, what, about 34 years?
34.5 with the Wyoming retirement.
Yeah, he was the facility manager for school districts before coming to work for us. He's retiring July 1st.
Congratulations.
That been a year.
Thank you.
On retirement, he's gonna get a pay increase.
Probably, he hopes so.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a sad day that we're losing Lance. He's certainly been, I know there's been a lot of director turnover and administrator turnover and stuff like that. And he's certainly been there to help educate over the years the history of what's gone on.
Weathering the storm.
Yeah, exactly. Weathering the storm. And I know, I always hear good things from the districts that he works with, and I know he's going to be missed. Do you have Jeremy with you, or is he on
Yeah.
the road?
Yep. Hang on.
Sorry.
Okay.
Right here I am. Still
this
setting
is-
up the computer over here.
Yeah, this is Lance's replacement. And so this is Jeremy Slater, excuse me, Jeremy. And would you do a little bit of background information for the commission? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. My name is Jeremy Slater, and I actually come from the construction field. I've had my own construction company down in Las Vegas for 23 years. I've also owned a demolition company and an environmental company on the hazardous material, asbestos. And so we've done a lot of DOD DOE contracts, with the federal government. So the background in this whole process, very familiar with. We've also done a lot of the Clark County School District buildings in the Clark County or Las Vegas area.
Thank
So
you.
awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. We never have any issues with demoing buildings and asbestos abatement and stuff. So I'm sure all in all, expertise there, but certainly look forward to meeting you, I think maybe tomorrow. And so
Yep.
good to see you on board.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bill,
Well, I think if you introduced, I guess maybe I give a little background on our two new gals. First of all, we didn't get to tell you at the last meeting that we did promote Amber into our supervisor, our policy and training supervisor. So ground running, she's got a lot of good ideas. Christine Solido started for us about a month ago, a little bit more, came in as a policy analyst. She actually came from Workforce Services. Prior to that, she worked for Laramie County School District #1. Prior to that, she came out of Florida where she worked for university there. So comes in with some good backgrounds, really hit the ground running. She almost has our facility plans updated, so we'll be bringing it for approval soon.
Great.
So she's done a great job there. And then Christine Fernandez, her background is in interior design. She came to us from Mead and Hunt. Prior to that, she's worked with Jacobs and has a lot of background in space utilization, facility assessments. You can tell from listening to her today, she's got a lot of background in building codes, EA codes. So comes in with a lot of that background to help us as we get ready to start. We're going to be heavy lifting on building profile updates. So I think we got a new rock star team back there. I think they're really hitting the ground running and getting a lot of work. Kind of been a one-man show for a while, so I'm glad to have that team on.
welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Anything else? I'd just like to thank
Thank
the
you.
Black County School District #1 and Superintendent Michael John for allowing us to use his room and introduce ourselves this morning. So the next item we have is the approval of our agenda. I entertain a motion, and then I'm gonna ask for revision of the agenda. But
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we add a lunch into our agenda, wherever that ends up, whether it's after 5 or item number 5, action item number 5, or whatever the case may be. But I also would like to add item number 10, Washington request for anticipated funding for the Tinsley Elementary, Middle, High School demolition project.
one more thing, we want to move items 6 and 7 to be discussed at 1 o'clock following our lunch. So, are there any other additions or corrections? Any other additions or corrections? Since we're ready to vote, I'm pretty nice. Second. Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Anyway, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Same sign. Two. First item we have on our agenda is select committee update, Director McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was a pretty interesting meeting. And I think we had 3 commissioners there meeting, so feel free to weigh in on anything that you saw out of there as maybe a highlight. But the bulk of the meeting was really dealing with education for the committee. There's an awful lot of new folks on that committee. And we got a lot of good feedback from them afterwards. And in fact, Vice Chair Angelos has asked us to come visit with her and try to get her up to speed a little more. She said she'd done a lot of research and homework prior to the meeting, but she didn't realize how much she still didn't know. And LSO, the bulk of their work was also trying to educate the committee on their responsibilities. We really educated them more on what we do and how that ties into the work of the select committee. A lot of history on things that have gone on in the past and why we've arrived at where we're at today in the discussions. There was 2 outcomes from the meeting. We brought up the subject of trying to keep intact, in future years, the difference between 115% and 135. And, they seemed amenable to at least, looking at that, in the, bill moving forward this summer. I think there was maybe one dissenting vote when that came up. The other thing is that they asked LSO to work with the department on the budget. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit later. And then, of course, the commission is going to approve a budget, hopefully. And we meet with the select in August then. And so we'll get with LSO staff after we sit down and get approval for moving the budget forward so that they can be working on proactively on a bill instead of waiting until maybe their third meeting to hit that, where we would brief them on the other. They can have that. We can brief them, we the staff, brief LSO and the select committee in August, and they'll have the bill kind of there, and then they can make it whatever they want to do on that. So I thought those were both good discussions. There was a fair amount of discussion on major maintenance and those issues, and I thought that was very beneficial based on the history. It was one of the later items, and we kind of moved through that fairly quickly, but we did present within the packet for the select committee a lot of the studies that FEA had done back in the 17, 18, 19 era that talked about the beneficial, increasing major maintenance to where the department and the commission has felt it should be, and the overall cost savings on capital construction. And I did sneak that discussion in on the end. And so, I think that was beneficial. I saw a lot of, folks going, well, when I said it was, the outcome of those previous studies indicated that we were funded major maintenance at that 2.5% property with about a $3.3 billion cost savings to the state of Wyoming over that 75-year time period. And when you stop and it seems like Campbell cases were fairly new when we still refer to them, I think, even for myself, but those were 25 years ago or longer. And so, that's roughly about what we spent total on capital construction to date, is about what that savings would be if we funded things. So it's not small change. And again, I think that was an eye opener, particularly for some of the newer members of the committee when we talked about that. Shelby and John did a lot of testimony, really carried a lot of the heavy lift in that meeting. And I think that's good that, with 3 commissioners there, with the staff that was there testifying, that I think they came away, my feel and comments that I received afterwards, that they came away understanding that we kind of know what we're doing. There's been a lot of effort put in between the commission and the department to where we're at today. And so, I came away from the meeting feeling very good about our presentations and the overall aspect. There was some follow-up discussions. I talked with the fire marshal on, you may recall from the last session, there was a discussion on how you shut down or lock doors within the schools. And so we talked about that. One of the members of the committee recently had attended a meeting with the fire marshal and some of his new staff that he's put on with a law enforcement background that talks about how you secure doors and facilities. So she came up and talked to me about that. So I've reached out to the fire marshal because one of the things they were hoping for was getting some information from the fire marshal on what is approved and not approved and those sort of things. And I said, I would, if he would provide that to us, then we'll get that out on our website. We'll send that information out to all 48 districts, so they'll have it available. So there was some other things that happened that have come out of that meeting, after the meeting. So again, I was very pleased overall as kind of the outcome. So, John, if you have anything.
Mr. Chairman, I think the other thing I would add is they did come out with a directive through LSO to actually hire an expert regarding educational suitability and to coordinate real closely with us. So we haven't had a chance to follow up with LSO yet. They busy with the celebration and a lot going on, but they will be working on that. We'll be coordinating, really trying to define that and how do we measure it. So that was one of.
So is that a legal, is that a lawyer with educational suitability background, or is that, I mean, what is LSO going to do hire?
Mr. Chairman, I can't answer that question at this.
Tell us what suitability means. Go figure it out.
All
John,
right.
I guess really just generally speaking, I feel like Select was very receptive to us and open-minded about what we're bringing to the table and willing to partner with us moving forward into the future. There really isn't any specific. Totally indelible. I did get a very good feeling for the Select committee. I think it's going to be working with this particular.
and you'll have the two kind of stalwarts too, Rothfuss and Langdon, so. which I think is- Okay, next item, July planning topics.
Mr. Chairman, so we wanted to, the commission have ideas or items specifically you would like some training on. Some of the things that Chairman, the director, and I've been talking about is maybe a quick review and update on our condition lists, how we create those, and how we keep those capacity lists, how we create them, how we use those. And then a quick review of the component project process and how we're looking to move forward with that and start to get. Maybe we have available how to resurrect that committee to develop our component project list, how we created it this year. And then we thought maybe an overview of the value engineering process, how we do that, what it is, what it's not, what are the types of things we're reviewing there, and maybe enrollment projections. And I know that Amber won't be with us, but I was hoping maybe I could get her to do that work. But I think for capacity, it's really important to understand how we do our enrollment projections and how we create those. So those were some ideas I had that I thought might be of interest to the commission, but something specific you'd like to get some education.
How do you want
Discuss.
to email it to you or tell you now or?
That'd be great. I think the other one I maybe didn't bring up that we missed was, how do we want to think about these non-educational buildings going forward with our
We need to talk.
and how do we segregate those? And then, as John mentioned, we've got different levels of non-educational buildings, some for full storage sheds and those types of things. And often those the top of our list, that administration. How do we want to go forward with there? We're doing pretty well. It appears right now with rising there. So I think that'd be discussed. But any ideas here, and certainly we will start our preparation.
I would definitely like to hear more about the anticipated ADM growth, decrease, et cetera, how that's projected, what that looks like. Just thinking back to the Teton County issues that we've dealt with, and being able to put some solid data behind those decisions, so that it's not the sky is falling or it is true fact. We've got something that we can base a solid decision upon. Based on that would be good.
Does the department head do something like that too? We get that information.
I'm not aware that we get anything. He asked if the Department of Education does any background work like on enrollments and drops in ADM that we've seen. I'm not aware that they do.
Trent can answer, but they do a 3-year average on their ADM when they put that into their calculations on the block grant side. I can speak to that part, but beyond that, in terms of what their trends are doing, I've never seen.
Trent, do you have any thing to add to that, what maybe WDE is doing on, in regard to future projections for growth?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I was a little slow here. I needed to find a spot to pull off, but we don't really do anything in terms of enrollment projections out into the future. And it was breaking up a little bit at the beginning of the question there. So was there another component to that question about work we do around enrollment or ADM?
No, we were just wondering if WDE did anything themselves on future projection growths or studies, what information you might have. Because the question on the front end was, we'd like to maybe at the July meeting have some more, what's that look like? How do we calculate that? What's the trends looking like that we monitor from the department standpoint?
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. So Mr. Chairman, we don't do much around projecting enrollment other than using basically current year enrollment to project out for purposes of building our budget. But when we assist with Mercer studies or other things, we would typically use any kind of projection that's provided to us for our financial calculations with the funding model. We don't do much beyond that.
Thank you, Greg.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing for the upcoming meeting itself. So the morning before the meeting, we're planning from 8 to 11:30. We're gonna try and host another facility managers meeting there. So anybody out in the audience or on watching in off the Zoom meeting, we'll be sending out some notices. I got a hold of Dan Celeroli this week and talked to him, and we've exchanged a couple of emails. So there's some stuff that we're going to bring up.
That's our Worland meeting.
Yeah, the Worland meeting. So we'll plan about 3.5 hours that Wednesday morning. So any of the commissioners that may come in Tuesday night and want to attend that, you're certainly welcome to sit in on that. Oh, okay. I guess that you guys are doing a tour.
Yeah.
And we're doing it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You sound great.
I can adjust, but.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, looking to have the commission go up and tour the high school during that time frame. And then we will do some local.
Or Thursday.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things I'd like to see if it's possible to build in. It's kind of the department succession planning continuity. What you see in the horizon?
We don't vote down that.
I don't know, just asking for a friend. And then the holding period on excess land, what the districts look like. At our May meeting, Albany County stepped up. They went through a pretty large portfolio, I think, of land that they were not using, had not used. Just interested if the other districts will do that or how long they hold on to stuff, given the revenue reductions we're looking at, get properties back on the tax rolls, things like that. Just a couple of.
Yeah, that guy there in Albany, old Randy, he's selling everything off. Hey, anything else? Tell me.
Oh, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. If you come up with anything else, close to Shelley and myself.
Thank you very much. Good suggestions. Next item is active capital construction project update. Administrator Carlson. It'll be under our tab A.
I'll walk you through a quick update on the project since we met last. On the new Slade Elementary School, we did get our bids back for the air conditioning upgrade to that facility. They came in right at $100,000, which was quite a bit less than we had expected. So that work is moving forward. Old Slade demolition, we will be before you today asking for $124,340 in unanticipated funding to finish that project. Our lowest responsive bid, All Pro Environmental out of Colorado. New Little Powder, K8, Van Ewing's now working on the interior and some site work, coordinating with YDOT on getting the turn lane constructed and still at about 70%. You'll see at the bottom of your page there a couple of photos that our project manager Karen Moon took recently when she was visiting. New transportation facility for Campbell One. Plan 1 is currently advancing the design to a 35% submittal. I think we will be meeting with Campbell One here in the near future. Take a look at those plans and talk about the site work that needs to happen there. So that that design is proceeding. And then the old transportation demo that is also included in that design with the new facility. New Campbell County High School, we should have that. The design contract was signed 5/13/25. And so that work is moving forward. That's also with Plan 1, correct?
That's correct.
And then, of course, the old Campbell High School demo, it's included in recently signed design documents. Riverton High School Auditorium, we got substantial completion on May 30th. Final completion and the move-in for that facility is July 1st. You do have a couple of pictures on page 5, one from the exterior of the Riverton High School at the front entrance to that auditorium, as well as an interior photo. So it turned out really nice. Looking forward to getting in there and seeing that facility. The new 5-6 elementary school, the design contract is being processed with FBL Consulting out of Sheridan. We're in process of that. New ARP elementary school design that went to Stasis. They also got the demo and abatement, and it's about 75% complete on that facility, which is helpful because we will be driving our budget request for that work in this year's budget. So we got some pretty good data to do that. And then they're nearing their 10% schematic for the new ARC elementary school. Rock Springs High School, we are processing the project agreement and the design contract as we speak. That also will go to Plan. The new transportation facility in Teton, number 1. We are in the award process to Ormond Builders for $9,807,636. And the old bus barn demo in that as well. Washakie number 2, New Tinsley K-12, moved in January 1st. They are currently working on the back and the field. We will be making an anticipated request for funding there today. It's at about 1.4 million. That is item 10 that we have added to your packet for today. We just have gotten that information in the last 2 days ago. And so we still need to do some review on that, but we did want to not have to hold a special. And I think we've got a photo there of the new Tinsley K-12 building.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So with that, I take any questions. Or John, did I miss anything that's important?
No, I don't think so. I think maybe just one project we're real close to, phase 2 of the Sublith medium voltage distribution project. So that will include the work from phase 1 that was incomplete. And is it okay if I?
Yeah.
we've had some discussions with a bankruptcy attorney. The advice that we've gotten essentially is that the bankruptcy trustee has missed their window of opportunity to assume the contract on the project. So we're proceeding and moving forward with existing funds. And we're not pulling the unanticipated that we requested as kind of a backup plan in the last stage. But we're gonna leave that money set in.
You think there's gonna be enough funds to cover it to finish that project?
It's gonna be very tight, but I think we're gonna be okay.
Cool.
We just need to get that
That's
contract.
good, good work.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Kevin, you
Like what I said.
I guess not. With that, are there any other questions?
Any questions, board?
Just one real quick one for Mr. Rex was Slade. The AC unit was brought up at select committee last year in Casper, where it was the district designed it for not year-round use, and so the complaint was it was too hot in the summer, but when the district went through the planning, they didn't let that out and overuse it.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Thayer. I think that what happened, it gets a little complicated. I don't want to oversimplify it, but there were some budget issues at the time, and there was some discussion with the BE. And the design team finally made the recommendation that they move forward without those cooling units as a budgetary measure. Now that we're through to this point, actually, we were able to save enough funds to the project to cover the addition of that cooling with existing projects. So it looks like we're in pretty good shape there. We're just waiting for the 11. And we can move forward with it. We did run a little bit short. Here.
Question on the Riverton Auditorium. What's the capacity of that?
Believe, if Karen Moon is online. Karen, do you know what the capacity? Oh, it's Stephen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That project
Steve's not on.
Stephen.
Sorry, Karen.
I should probably look that up and get it back to you.
If you.
Yeah. For some reason, I want to say around 700 students, but I'm not sure all about it.
Any questions? What? Okay, next item. B, which is 2027-28 biennial budget review, Director Cody.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Have
We're trying to get done by one on this.
by when?
By one. You have some other stuff with. Anyway, we talked about the budget at the last meeting. We're refining that still as we speak, but we do have some more numbers that actually bring to you at this meeting, other than in some cases more of a concept. So the first thing that we'll be requesting is the $51,460 for computer upgrades and software. That's really something that is driven by EPS within the state government, replacement cycles, things like that. So that'll be running into our budget, so you'll see that. Senior policy planning or advisory position. So that's the two positions that we had talked about last meeting. One is a backup for JJ and the AIM system. All of the things we're doing on that realm now, both not only on the school facility side, but also state CM construction management. We're out on the street right now doing a fleet assessment for all the state buildings, and that'll go into almost an identical guidance system that we're using on the school side. So all that data going in. The other thing that a big project that we have going on right now is in regard to the AIM system, but tying in a routine maintenance program. So it'll track routine maintenance, send out work orders, do all those kind of things. Got a number of different modules. Go with that we've purchased that the school districts can utilize and
Can or will.
can. It's an elect in if they want to come into it. With JJ is working right now with Sheridan and Rock Springs facility managers to kind of write the script and get that out. We've had a number of districts come and look at it. So again, that's probably going to be a year or so out before we get that all up and running. I think in the long run, you'll see a lot of districts come on. I think it'll save money for the districts over some of their current programs that they have. Again, kudos to JJ, but working with the facility folks, folks, if we went out and purchased that off of what their pricing was on the street, it was a little over $13 million to put 48 school districts on. We were able to get that for about $900,000. Yeah, and so really good program. Again, not only on the school side, but on the state side, I think folks are anticipating get on that system. And so we're allowing the districts to use major maintenance funds to do the first upfront lift on that, roughly $17,000. And after that, it would just be their standard budget, just like they do with the current programs that some of them have. Would come out of their block grant type of funding. But again, it's I think for the bang that you're getting out of this, the increased flexibility over some of the other stuff they're using, much cheaper, be in that $5,000 range on a yearly basis. Another thing that JJ was able to think, again, just a remarkable cost working with ability folks on there, was the annual fee at about $500, I think, a year for it. And, you know, if you know anything about software, that's where you spend the big bucks is later on. JJ and I attended NASA, which is the National Association of State Facility Administrators in Utah here last month. JJ did a presentation on what we're doing right now and how we assess our buildings and all the data that's in there. Talk a little bit about the routine maintenance thing, what we're doing. Some of the meetings that I went to might have 15, 20 people in it. Yes, it was a double room we were in. JJ did a presentation in. Yes, at least 100 chairs in a standing room only all the way around the room. And after that, he couldn't hardly get down the hallway without people saying, you know, that's really cool. That's where we want to be. Can you help us? Can we call? Take a look at it? That kind of stuff. So again, I think we're doing, you know, particularly, you know, JJ just does a phenomenal job on getting that data system set up. So that's something that, again, back up for him to do that, because managing the AIM system and all that, that's, you know, he's also CFO. And so, you know, he's doing all that type of work. So we need somebody there to help him and back up on that. Then the other is a policy planner advisor position. We had one, we had that position back when I was director previously, and just did an awful lot of work on when we're updating rules and regulations, helping with the project manager. In this case, we would probably assign that duties to handle all the Mercer studies, keep track of all that kind of stuff. Of course, we got the adequacy design standards. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like on school safety, going out maybe doing some reviews there, whether it's with Homeland Security and or some other type of an assessment. You know, those type of projects, Shelby and John are just spending an inordinate amount of time trying to track all that, while they're trying to keep, you know, all the other projects and budgets and everything else running. We really need to have that position back. So I have visited with the governor's staff and you know, advise them is trying to get additional positions in state government's hard. And but we're going to make that ask, and so you'll have that look at your next meeting. It's not inexpensive. These are higher level positions that we're talking about in the agency. So about $387,000 request there for the biennial, those positions. Then the well, that's for the senior policy analyst, and then on the finance person, it's 278,000 or 77,000. We're also looking at an increase in the travel budget. Right now, with all the bursars, you know, when you go back and look when the biennium budget was done a couple of years ago, we got 25, 6, 7, changing all the time on bursars. The staff going out, Shelby going out, my staff going out, attending board meetings, attending those individual meetings, the project managers, the planning staff, and everybody when we kick those off at the district and going out is taking an awful lot of pride time. I anticipate, and we looked at the budget request on this, is future meetings that deal with bursars with the commission. Again, also looking at additional work in regard to the rules and regs and some of that stuff. Adequacy, that's going to be a big lift. A lot of involvement with the districts, with select committee, those sort of things. So right now, we're trying to limit staff travel just to get through the rest of this year. We don't. If we had continued the way we were, we didn't have enough to do the travel that we would normally do. So we're going to ask for an increase in budget there. We're still refining that number. We talked about it a little bit on the way up. I think it'll probably end up a little bit lower than that, but than what we see there at the $170,000 increase. But anyway, we're going to ask for a budget increase there. And again, that hasn't been updated for a long time. And we all know when you go try to get a hotel room, a lot more expensive than it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. Charter school leases. This is the number that has been driven out that we're anticipating right now of the current charter schools with their enrollments and their square footage. So about a $6.275 million request there. And then a charter school contingency fund. We talked about this at the last meeting to some degree. This is a new request. We haven't had this in the budget previously. About $1.8 million roughly. I think when we talked about it at the last meeting, it was a little bit lower than that. But what we're really looking at here is since the statute changed where it used to be before we start paying leases in 3 years, now the statute change says when a charter school comes on, you immediately start paying for that lease. Then another statute change was limiting the number of those. Now it's kind of carte blanche. You just make your applications as those are coming through. When you look at the budget cycle to try and do that, we feel we can't react when new charters that quickly without having some funding there.
What triggers that? Do they have to prove that they have X number of students when they start, or are they just gonna have a charter school and that we're gonna have it? You might not have anybody show up.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, they actually work through the board and WD has a lot in that process also. So yes, we on the current ones we have coming out, we look forward with them. We sit down and talk to them. We actually run the charter schools through our annual plan event with the districts. But when a new one comes on, we'll know through the authorizing for kind of what's coming on. So let's use Alpine right now. That's taken a couple, 2 or 3 years, but it's been back and forth. Are they going to build a new school? Looks like right now they're going to take the modular units that are coming offline for the new private school in Jackson and utilize those. And then they'll give us an anticipated number of students for that first year. We'll drive out those numbers. One of the things that changes in the way we're paying also is when you look at the local rent is how we base that on for similar type of renting in a community. Well, that's changing every year. And so again, going up or going down, that's a fluctuation we have to deal with. The changes in student population within the current ones, not just the new ones, but the current ones can fluctuate. So that drives out. And so let me give you 2 really good examples, and they're both in Cheyenne. You have Poder, where they have quite a few students. And so when you drive out their ADM calculation for their square footage, they don't have enough square footage for the amount of students they have. But they've been adding almost every year additional square footage. So now when they add that square footage, the next year when it comes online, we've got to adjust that lease amount and calculate that. Another new charter school that came online, they have additional, or what we would term excess square footage for the number of students they have. But they, in their business plan, have said originally they were going to start off with a K4. By the time they got around to opening, they went to a K5, but they're going to add another grade. So that adds more students. They already have the excess square footage. So they have enough square footage to add, which then drives another calculator for us to increase. So it's very dynamic for us, even with the existing charter schools, much less if the new charter school comes on. Again, if you look at what's going on in Alpine, building a new school versus moving in modulars is a totally different time frame for when they start up. And so for us to be able to react to that per statute and pay those lease agreements, we're going to ask for a contingency fund similar to the land opportunity fund that the commission has, so that when something comes up that was, a district hadn't foreseen, and knowing they need some more property, but nobody thought somebody was going to sell, a house or move off or something, that's there. This is a similar type of concept that we're going to ask that this not revert, that the money be there. If we don't use the money, we don't use the money. But then each biennium or each cycle that we run through, if we use that, we can ask for some more money to replenish the account, not just add a total amount as needed as we move forward. So that's again a different concept. We did talk with select committee about that also, and I think they thought, yeah, you probably need. Modular releases, 53 or 52,375. That's for the 3 modulars that are in Laramie 1. And so that's an ongoing lease there. Engineering and technical, that is just our standard budget. So we're not asking for an increase, 3 million, 4 million, or whatever. That 1.2 million there is in the standard budget. That's an amount of money we get every biennium automatically through the budget. Design phase for projects. Hobbs Elementary in Laramie 1, 3.7 million. Then East High School, roughly 4 million for that. And that's design only for those.
Laramie,
Yes.
both of those are design only.
Yes. Yeah. And then you'll see down below under the construction phase, then for Hobbs Elementary, we'll be asking for 33,800,000 for that. And so you don't see anything for East at that point. The reason is at East, that's being driven out through the Mercer study, and it's an addition to the school, and it's big dollars when you'll hear that, because it's approximately for 400 additional students. So basically an elementary school, good sized elementary school. And the reason we're not asking for money right at this point in time is there's a lot of different, the designer will have a lot of different options as to how they add and where they add that square footage to that building. So we didn't just want to run a normal calculation for that without having some better information. I mean, we could, but we felt it was better to work through the design phase of that, get a better estimate through the design phase, and then come back to the commission next year and ask for those. The safety and security, again, 10 million. That's something that's kind of a number we're putting out at this point in time. What we're thinking right now is there is a need for security vestibules, statewide bollards in front of a lot of schools that even has security vestibules. Our planning staff is going to reach out here soon and get some more numbers on that. We know how many schools don't have vestibules and do have vestibules through our data with schools, but we want to reach out to the districts and try and refine that number, that head count, because we went and toured in Douglas, and so they on the front of the building, you think that's their entrance, but really where they're using a lot of their entrance is on the back of the building. Their parking lots in the back, the kids coming in and out of the back. There is not a security vestibule on the back of the building, and that's really where there's a lot of, during the day, a lot of entrance. So they actually added a room back there where they because before it was kind of unmanned, and so they added a person, a staff person there to monitor who comes in, who goes out, when they're going in and out. Because if you wanted to go, you have to hit the door and where you go. And so, we want to try and refine that information. Right now, we're thinking maybe a couple million that school districts could make an application to the Department of Commission for vegetables. And then we could try and fund out of that larger pot. And then for the rest of it, maybe distribute those funds based on ADM. Because, we had the security conference. We've talked to the districts in their annual planning meetings. There is no two districts or buildings that are the same. So let the districts then take that remaining 8 million and put it towards their needs. A lot of what we heard was dealing with software updates for a lot of their, the Falcon system, some of those things, Raptor system. Those are all aging out. A lot of that came about the same time when that original tranche of security money came out in 15, 16. So that stuff's 9, 10 years old. They're having a hard time replacing parts. The software is now terminating, and so they need new software. Oh, we feel it's probably, it's the saying of the decisions are best made closer to the ground. And so let the districts figure out what they need for that. Again, that's a topic I think for the commission at the next meeting. That's where we're kind of sitting on our recommendation right now. And certainly if you all feel that maybe should be higher, certainly that's something we can amend at the meeting as far as the overall budget. I think that's something needs to happen there. Then the next is the component level major maintenance projects. Again, I'm trying to keep that in that $30 million range. That's somewhat kind of history around that, and the legislature has at least recently funded that fairly favorable at that. Again, it's kind of an offshoot, as you're aware, of major maintenance, trying to take care of those buildings, particularly to help the districts out on some of these larger projects. Currently, we're looking at about 17 or 18 projects. I think we're sitting at about 34 million right now. So I don't know exactly where we'll end up. I mean, there's nothing sacred on 30 million, but John has been reaching out to all of the districts and talking to their staff on all of these component projects that we're taking a look at right now. I think how we'll send that out is just like we have in the past, that we'll ask the legislature when they fund that. As those project dollars are spent, we'll have a couple of component projects unfunded below that line. And if we have available funding, we'll move that down so that we don't revert to money. We'll ask that not be reverted, be added on to the project. So again, kind of how we've done that in the past. We talked a little bit about working with the facility manager group in the upcoming years, how we want to look at that program overall, also as far as testing projects and priorities. Again, I'm going to try and be in that $30 million range, but we'll give you information on all the projects. And again, that's something that we end up, it looks like maybe a little bit higher funding. We'll not just cut it off and say that's the end of it. We'll give you some of these projects we're looking at, so that we aren't going to be there. The reason I say it's a little bit of work in progress, just as of even yesterday, we had some updated cost estimates on a project that changed those overall dollars. So again, it's a work in progress, but we've got to get that kind of all done within the next couple of weeks, simply so we can put the package together for you all the meetings. So a lot of these numbers are fairly close. The next is demolition. That's for Laramie 1 for the ARP abatement demolition. Roughly about 1.3 million.
Where are we on that whole project for little kiddos? Or
they're getting real close to 10% schematic design on the design of the new school, and 75% on the demolition.
what do you think they'll break ground?
I would suspect we'll probably have a bid letting around next February or March. And then there's about a 40-day contract period for that, so they should be off and running.
Cool.
And I would say it's a rather large element, talking 75,000 square feet, so it's probably not a good 16 to 18.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we do have Andy with Laramie. Anything you wanted to add to that timeline or kind of what you thought process?
No, I think John covered it there. We're scheduled right now to bid, I think in February of next year. Construction. And then as soon as we get through the contract, we'll start demolition as quick as we can and construction. So we're planning on opening for the fall of 28.
28. Yep. Cool. Take care of those bird kiddos.
The next, Mr. Chairman, is Albany one. It's not on this list. That's one we're looking at right now with, Prairie View. Prairie View is between Laramie and Arlington. And, so that will be another demo project we'll be looking at the rural school, situation. They haven't used this school for, as students in it for
Last year was 2019.
2019. The lease agreement with the landowner, I believe, was if there isn't anybody in that school for like 5 years, to revert back. The district is that revert that back, and so they're looking at demoing the stuff that's on that site right now. And so again, we'll have those dollars, so anticipate that. Then the next is the unanticipated to 6%. That goes with your planning, design, your construction projects, and your demolition. You can see those dollars there. So the subtotal on this page is about $98 million, 79 on these things that we've discussed so far. If you turn to the next page, page 8 of 115, you have the major maintenance funds. The commission's aware that the legislature last year changed the standard funding from 2% to 2.5%. I think we were at about 179 million in the previous biennium. So we're looking at probably in the neighborhood of about $231 million request on the major maintenance. And again, JJ's been working on that and making sure all those numbers are updated and getting the information from ANIs that helps us look at CRV values and all of that. Of course, then you fall back into that square footage, ADM calculations, all that. It's not a simple calculation to run those numbers out. But again, about 231 million total in that arena. And then the following facilities have ongoing Mercers. We have Rollins Education K1. That one, we're actually going to Rollins tomorrow to visit with the district on that one. So it's fairly far along. That looks like it's probably going to turn out to be a bonus project in the $2.5–3 million range, something like that. Again, just rough numbers at this point in time. They'll need to sit down and go through that with the district. Moorcroft High School is another one that's ongoing, and we may not have to do anything. So that one may not add it into a future budget request. Oh, on that one we will. That's the 27 million.
Around. That's that'll actually is really kind of a little project, but it's a big one. We'll make it as
Okay. Rendezvous Elementary, I'll let Shelby talk and kind of update you on both these, but Rendezvous Elementary, Frontier Academy, fairly large request there. That looks like about 51 million for that. So you want to kind of.
Yeah, so I visited with Superintendent Iba earlier this week, and our consultant Will Wedemeyer with Stasis. We are going to break that Mercer into two separate Mercers, one for Rendezvous Elementary and one for Frontier Academy. Going to try to. Our goal is to have Rendezvous for you next meeting. We'll include it in the budget ask. That's going to be around for capital request there. That does have a couple years of inflation on it. With regards to Frontier Academy, we've done quite a bit of work there. A recent happening in Riverton is that the Job Corps is proposed to be closed. They have temporarily put a stay on that, but the minute that word came out, the district and CWC have started having discussions on whether maybe that facility, it's a beautiful facility, if you've ever been up there, might be an option where this alternative move to. And so what we're gonna do is separate those two apart. We're gonna go ahead and finish the elementary school, and we're gonna give maybe a year on that Frontier Academy to see maybe where that washes out and what that looks like going forward. But we're gonna push that request for a year. Superintendent Ibaugh is comfortable with that. She actually prefers that wait on that. You can handle that alternative school for another year or two where they're at. So that's kind of what's going on there. We will be for you with a Mercer recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, so if you total up all the requests, if my math's right, we're about 328.9 million without these Mercers. So we still got to go through all that Mercer process, meet board meeting requests as well as commission authorization and fit that shoehorn those into the budget. So that would be an additional about 54, I guess now it'd be down because we're breaking it, so you'd be at about 40 million more on top of that if all those Mercers pan out and can come before the boards and the commission make the budget. So any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Any thoughts?
couple of questions. So running through your charter school leases and looking at some of those things, as well as the previous conversation we had regarding population and anticipation of growth within schools, districts. And maybe this is something more for our work session upcoming, but Teton One comes to mind, and I know that they've got a lot of housing that's going to be coming online here directly if it isn't already. And so I haven't been in the loop as far as where the status of Teton One is, as far as the high school, as far as their additional facilities, some of those things. So I'd like to get some more information, some more background on that, as well as, whether these new high density housing facilities, are those incorporated into the models as far as anticipated growth within these school districts, and just kind of looking at that as far as that's concerned.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, on Teton One, for the next meeting, we do plan to bring to the commission, I think the board meeting is 16. We're going to break out the security module from the bigger Mercer study and bring that to the commission so they can get that money. The money's available, plus million made available, so they can start on that security vestibule sooner than later. We did meet with the district, their board, and a number of legislators, and presented some options on the Mercer study and went through a lot of that information you're talking about, as far as regarding enrollment and housing and all of that. I can tell you the district was not happy with the numbers that we had. They thought are way too low, but I think there's ways to mitigate some of that. I'd say it's an inexact science on these population projections at best. Right now, they do have 100+ seats capacity within the building, with the additional classrooms that we're talking about adding for CTE space, etc. We provide another 100 and some. We monitor their capacity on a yearly basis. One of the options that we're looking at is then in their CTE space we build out now, is that if they have future growth, we put a hard lid on top of that first floor so that we would be ready to add classrooms on a second level on a fairly short-term notice. It would be all designed out. It would be framed out to be able to do that, which would give them some more there. But again, it got fairly, there were a lot of discussion over that with them. We actually met, one of the things to try and get a firmer number on dollars, on kind of where we're heading and looking at maybe some different options. We met with their designer, so Kurt Doobie, he past commissioner, for this, board. And he's an architect that has done a lot of the design work for the district on both the Bronx Achievement Center and then within the building itself. And so we sat down with our Mercer team yesterday and went over costs, dollar amounts on what our consultant was looking at. Interestingly enough, I don't think we were that far off of the dollar amount. Part of that based on some of the recent work that's going on in the community, as well as the cost that they saw for the transportation facility. But the dollars that we had in the draft Mercer at this point in time did not include soft costs, did not have inflation in it, some of that. So it looks to me like there may be a request. Again, we're looking at different options, trying to refine, stay within budget, but there may be a request for some additional funding for Jackson beyond the 20 million that was presented to the legislature moving forward. We're hoping we can have that Mercer done fairly soon. It will be beyond your budget meeting, but I think there's options moving forward with perhaps the select committee and or joint appropriations, and then the timing and the governor's budget if we need to add some more in for the Teton Mercer once that's approved. And so, I'm optimistic there. The other thing, in talking with some of the legislators from that area, when we talk about additional funding, we do have the current budget that was funded over the last couple of years for the department through some Mercers, Lincoln, 2 bus barn, for example, transportation facility. We've got a number of projects where we're looking to turn back that project alone, like 10 million. We're certainly not anticipating that much addition to the funding we have now. Well, maybe a request to the legislature that we need to add some money to the Teton Mercer, but not necessarily new money. It could be, rather than reverting this money back when they want to revert it, maybe they can offset it, put it towards that project.
Sure. Couple of quick questions. One of them relates to this. I would like to see us have kind of a discussion between that on the population projections, the impacts of the charter schools, and potentially in Teton County, the private school, on those populations, because those are all kind of interplayed, even though there's no way to really quantify it. So that'd be nice to have in our works. The second thing I have was, did you guys look at the end of the select committee meeting, there was a question about the changing rooms and restrooms. Did you guys look at any of that? I did talk to my wife who works in the facility there, assuming it's a more widespread problem. So I'm just wondering if you'd looked at putting anything.
Mr. Chairman, we'll actually be bringing that to the board today, address Tetons. And so that'll address what we're proposing, discussion for that. So you'll hear that. Okay. And Mr. Chairman, that was also something that we brought up at the select committee to make them aware. And it's just not only on the school side, it's on the state side too. The same thing with the state buildings, having that same discussion with the other hat that I wear in the governor's office.
Anything else with the budget? Any questions on the budget? Okay, says under that, we'll move to action item 1, which is tab 1. It's approving the minutes of the previous meeting. I entertain it. Approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move to move that the State's Facilities Committee approve the State Construction Department's recommendation as indicated.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Any additions or corrections to the minutes? If none, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Same sign. Will approve. Next item is tab 2. Laura Anderson, the funding transfer transactions and financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll start off as we always do with a listing of the balances for the unanticipated accounts that the commission has control over. The 17-18 unanticipated account is sitting at just under $1.2 million. The 21-22 account is at $1 million even. 23-24 is at 2.359 million, and 25-26 is sitting at 22,114,000. The Land Opportunity Fund is sitting at $713,500. Emergency Fund is just a hair over 4 million, and the Planning Fund is at $3,500,335. The Inflationary Fund you'll see on page 15 of your packet at the bottom. We sit with the original appropriation over $20 million, with budgeted projects sitting at just under $7 million for a remaining uncommitted balance of 13.96. Moving along to page 16 of your packet. This is where we look at the appropriation of the executive summary report, which contains the operations, major maintenance, and capital construction combined, and then later we'll break those three out. You can see the total of appropriations. Net appropriations has been over $4.7 billion over the life of the commission. Moving to page 17, this is where we look at the operations report. I'll draw your attention to column D. This is where we look at the expenditures and where we're sitting. This is completely normal for where we're at in this time in the biennial budget at just under $200,000 for expenditures there. Moving along to page 18. This is the major maintenance appropriation summary report. And here you would look at columns D and E, where you look at the amount distributed to the districts, which we put in current. And then E is the district's expenditures. That figure is reported as of July of 24. We are already working on, it's called the 680 report for you, trying to get the districts in. I had a staff member, Laura Still, that coordinates with all the districts. She's already actively involved in trying to get them to get their stuff in on time. So that will be updating. We'll have that hopefully updated in August or September, depending on when we get the information from the districts. Moving along then, you'll see on the next page, page 19, this is the capital construction appropriation summary report. What I draw your attention to here is column F. This is the balance not expended. So we like to make sure that those funds are going out the door and onto projects. So we're always monitoring those balances. There are a few that are older that you'll see that are listed. There are a variety of reasons why those are still there. They are valid. There's questions on that. I have to answer them. Moving along to page 20. This is the capital construction transaction summary. And I draw your attention here to column B. This is where we move the transactions that move out of budgeted, which is the red number, up to the awarded contracts, which is the positive number. This is the least I have ever seen it in the 6 years I've been here. I've never seen it this small. It's only $2,000. That's just kind of the way it happened this month. That all went to the Lyman Intermediate School roof. That's what that project was for. And you can see the details of that later on your in your report. Moving along to page 21. Pages 21 through 24 are simply a listing of all of the details for the unanticipated accounts that we went over at the beginning of the presentation. And then if you move along to page 25 and 26, this is the details of the transactions report, which is that $2,000. And then, Mr. Chairman, following up the rear here with the report that we always do at the end of the financials is the listing of appropriations by district and facility, which is from page 27 to the end of the tab on page 41. Are there any questions I can answer for anyone on the financial?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Scott.
Just back on 14, the 17-18 unanticipated APCON been out there for a while, and I know Saddle Ridge had some offsite. How long do those stay out there? Are they earmarked forever? Or?
It is earmarked until the project is finished and we revert it. Saddle Ridge, though, that funds that you're seeing out there that is for actually not on the unanticipated, you're thinking of the modulars. That's something
Wasn't
separate.
it like a road, the change or an interchange?
Yeah, there was, I believe there was infrastructure on that one.
Yeah.
Sewers.
Yeah, when we negotiated property with the developer that owned it, it's surrounded by new residential. Part of that agreement was we would pay our share of the adjacent roads to where the anticipated. And so we worked through that. I think that was 2 years. And came to an agreement.
So then the reversion of 1.2 million, does it hang out there until that?
Well,
A number of years.
until, what I do with the reversions, we look at the school district and we work with John and his staff. And they tell me there's absolutely nothing else that's going to be able, there's nothing else that qualifies to touch those funds. That's when we revert those funds. Until we've got every project that was on the list that those funds would be applicable for. If there's still ones out there that can tap that account, we don't revert it because we don't know what we're gonna need and what we're not gonna need. So we leave it there until this gentleman here tells me we're all done. And then we get with the district to make sure the district understands, are you sure? We usually send a letter and say, are you sure? Because once they go back, I cannot claw those back once we revert them. So we're really careful about reverting, and that's why you see them sitting out there for such a long time.
And just generally, we like to wait until month block. Just in case something's driven during that. A warranty or.
Thank you.
I mean, we recently had something like that. Coyote Ridge Elementary School. For special needs. So we went in and did. On that particular project. Laura said on that. We try to hang on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions? I'd entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend the commission approve the financial reports as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? Since you're ready to vote, all those in favor of approving the financial reports, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say aye. So moved. I'm gonna try to do tab 3 and 4, and then we'll break for lunch. So, tab 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll do my best to get us to lunch as fast as we can. Tab 3 action item is for the disposition of Valley View Elementary School modular and receptive track. Albany County School District 1 sent us a letter on March 24th of this year, disclosing their intent to dispose of this school, the modular tied to it, and the associated track. This is a small rural school that's located approximately 20 miles northwest of Laramie. We've got kind of a breakdown describing the different portions of the property there just below that. In accordance with the quitclaim deed on the property, if they don't have students in attendance at that building for a period of 5 years, the property value. It doesn't appear that in the deed that there's an obligation for this. But I think being a responsible neighbor and knowing that we were able to use that property for the past 62 years.
62.
Yeah. And so I think that also helps mitigate a little bit of risk in regards to what may happen if there's any asbestos containing materials. Yeah. So we'd really like to move in and get that taken. Right now, we're kind of estimating the cost of about, which is a real rough estimate of cost. We're gonna take a deeper dive into that and see, but we were just recently in communication with the property owner. They conveyed their interest in it's kind of a last minute estimate on what we think. I think we're fine. Doesn't appear that there's a whole lot of abatement necessary in this demolition, but it does concern me a little bit because it's a smaller project and because it's a rural location. That there might be a lot of shipping or transport fees with whatever it is. I do want to keep it fair. Thanks. The School Facility Commission has approved this for mothball status way back in May of 2020. It has been added to the district's facility plan recently. And the Board of Trustees for the district held a public hearing on March 12th and approved the disposition. The action item is to determine whether the disposition of this property is in the best financial interest of the state, public, and the potential results are that with SFC's approval, Albany County School District 1 will dispose of the Valley View ES, Valley View Modular, and the associated tract line. If the School Facility Commission declines to approve disposition, the property will still revert to the landowner for the deed requirement. The state's recommendation is that the state construction department recommends that the School Facility Commission approve Albany County School District 1's request to dispose of the Valley View ES, Valley View ES Modular 1, and the associated tract of land as being in the best financial interest of the state and public, with the understanding that any costs and revenues incurred by the disposition of the building shall be accounted for in the district's facility plans and considered in the building the facility remedy for the district, including any required remediation. And the recommended motion is included in the summary sheet for you.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
The motion is I move the Commission approve State Construction Department's recommendation as indicated. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Since you're ready to vote, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion is approved. The next item we have
Mr. Chairman,
is item 4.
Item number 4 is on page 50 of 115. Again, this is Albany County School District coming forward with a request for unanticipated funding on the Slade Elementary School demolition. I would say just right out of the gate that this is a prime example of why it's important for us to wait until we have a full-blown abatement design and cost estimate before we ask. This is one where we just use the standardized template to bring forward a budget request. And so the quantity and the cost for the abatement on this project were really unknown for us. And that's the purpose behind this unanticipated request. The demolition project was appropriated $1,314,859 in the 2024 budget session. To date, $141,199 contracted for design, owner's representation, which includes the abatement, investigation, and design. Expenses that remain are an audit, and all of these figures that I'm about to read off are our best guess estimates at this point. $6,000 for audit, $2,000 for owner's overhead, $40,000 for air monitoring and clearance sampling, leaving us a total shortfall in the design phase of the project of $48,000. The current construction phase budget is $1,173,660. And the lowest responsive proposal for the abatement demolition was received on Thursday, May 1st, 2025, for the amount of $1,200,000. With owner's contingency an amount of $50,000 as an estimate, which was on our original budget worksheet for the budget request. That leaves us with a shortfall in construction of $76,340. By supplementing the cost of work with unanticipated funds from the 526 biennium and the amount up to $124,340. The project can be made whole with respect to current estimates, construction, soft costs, and contingencies. I would like to point out that we're asking for an amount up to, we don't want it to be our unanticipated necessarily. So we're gonna kind of spoon feed those dollars into the project as necessary. And if it takes less than that, we'll be pulling less from. The action item is to consider Albany County School District 1's request for the School Facilities Commission to authorize up to $124,340 from the School Facility Commission's 25-26 unanticipated fund appropriation to be transferred onto the Slade ES demolition project. Potential results are that if the SFC approves the request, the district will have sufficient funds in the project budget to proceed with the demolition, including all demolition, soft costs, and contingencies. If it's not approved, the district may be unable to complete the project timely or adequately. The state recommendation is that the State Construction Department recommends the School Facility Commission approve the transfer of funds from the 25-26 unanticipated account in an amount up to $124,340 for the Slade ES demolition project in Albany County. And that's all of our recommendation.
I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to confirm in my own head, so it's the 25-26 unanticipated funds, that's that 22 million according to our financial report, right? I just wanted to get that straight in my head.
Further discussion, let's get a motion and. No, that's okay.
Facility Commission approved the state construction department's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing you're ready to vote, all those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? So moved. We will now break for lunch. Come back. We will start promptly at 12:50. I was like, you just your pants.
Okay.
It's not as bad as it was, but it's still there, and I'm just.
Everybody, as we talked earlier,
There have been times.
we're gonna do items 6 and 7. This, the previous item will be back, item 5. So, Shelby, if you'd like to start with item 6.
Mr. Chairman, introduce this item is the Laramie County School District number 1. Exception request for an increase to allowable square footage for our elementary school. A little background for you, this was before you on November 7th, 2024, and you approved the Mercy for the Laramie 1 elementary schools. And this is one of those 2 schools that's moving forward with design. We are almost to 10% schematic design on this particular project. We do have a presentation for you up front that I think will help explain a lot of what I got later in the summary sheet. With that, I'd like to introduce Andy Knapp with Laramie County School District 1 and forward with presentation.
Good afternoon. So I wanted to just give you a little background. Some of you that may not be as familiar with our district and may not be familiar with our consultant, but Sally Means, an architect and consultant for educational facilities, K-12 and collegiate for almost 40 years, I believe. And we hired Sally as a consultant prior to these 2 schools getting to the point where they're at. So she had done a lot of programming for us. So we'd be ready to hit the ground running when we started these schools. And what I want to talk about, one of the reasons we have this, it's probably a little different dynamic than you see some places in the state. But as most of you know, we do have 3 triads in Cheyenne. Our South Triad, which are where both of these schools are going, we see about, I believe it's around 70% students that qualify for free and reduced lunches. There's 25% of students that are on individual education plans. So what's driving some of this are those needs to have more professionals and paraprofessionals in those schools. And the additional square footage needed for those. So I don't want to get redundant with Sally's presentation here, but this is Sally Means. I'll turn it over to her. And if you have any questions at the end, feel free to ask either one of us.
Will she discuss both of those at kind of the same time?
I believe they're both on
pretty
the
much go
agenda.
hand in hand, don't they?
They do, one after another, and they're just slightly different on the square footage.
Yeah, if you would. No, just go for
And Mr. Chairman, I do have it set up so we would do our,
it. Okay.
and then we'll move into the next, because they are different. With different values, so I think it makes sense to go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see my screen with
No.
the Arc Elementary School request?
We cannot.
You cannot. Let me go back. And
Here we go.
there we go. Okay, excellent. My first attempt at sharing didn't quite work. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and I really appreciate you adjusting the agenda a bit. As Andy indicated, oh, hang on just a sec. Let me get my screen to a better place. You should be able to, let me get a full presentation mode. I have just a few things to cover on ARP. Kind of the key factors in this request relate to the basis from where we start with the Mercer study, and then the unique things about the demographics for the school being the special needs population. And there are some factors related to building a school for a larger elementary school population that we have with the ARP Elementary School. So those are the things I intend to cover. I included in the packet some background on myself. I've practiced, as Andy said, for over 40 years, licensed and practicing in Wyoming since the early 90s, and have done a number of projects around the state, quite a bit of work for Laramie County School District #1 and some work over at UW. About 5 years ago, I sought some additional credentials because I wanted to focus on the early planning for schools. I have such a passion for what happens with kids and learning, and facilities really make a difference. So I became an accredited learning environment planner in 2020. Starting with the Mercer on the South Triad, the intent was to consolidate 4 schools that are listed here on the screen into one larger elementary school with a capacity of 550. And that would have a maximum allowable building area of 72,815. And as we looked closer at the planning for this school, the demographics are a little bit unique for this school. And what's relevant here is on the special needs students, the population is quite a bit higher in the South Triad. Across the country, 15% of elementary school students are special needs students, and that comes from some national data sources that I quoted in your packet. In Wyoming, that percentage of special needs students for 2024 was 16.3, according to WDE. In Laramie County as a whole, Laramie County 1 school district, the special needs were the 15.1. But when you look specifically at the South Triad, that jumps up to 23.8% of the kindergarten through 6th grade students are special needs students. That means that they need additional help and support to achieve the academics needed for them to progress in school. So in looking at just the students that would attend ARP from those 4 schools that I listed on the last slide, for 2024-2025 school year, there were 118 students that had individual education plans or IEPs out of a total of 531 students that were attending those 4 schools. So that's a pretty significant number of students that need that extra support. In terms of the facility and what the space implications are, when we look to determine the size of spacing, you see on the left-hand side of this slide in your packet, what goes into sizing spaces are the number of occupants and the activity of the occupants, what equipment might be needed for the activity, and then there's some code and regulatory requirements that we always have to make sure we plan for. In the case of ARP, there are additional space needs for educational suitable classrooms related to the special education instruction. That means additional staff. In some cases, there's additional equipment and mobility assistant devices sometimes are needed by the students. There's a need for additional resource rooms for the special education pullout instructional support. Having just one resource room for an elementary school that would be normal in, say, a 2 or 3 section school, that won't fulfill the needs of the students in this building. Along with that, working with the Director of Special Services for the district, we looked at the demographics within the South Triad for those special needs students that would be categorized as intensive need students, and we determined that the numbers that we need to accommodate will be about 14 intensive needs students, and that would need to be 2 self-contained special ed classrooms that would support their education. Along with that, there are paraprofessionals and additional things that are needed in those spaces. Because of the overall numbers for ARP, there will need to be a full-time psychologist, a full-time speech pathologist, and a full-time social worker. Normally, those student services staff are kind of itinerant. They might serve the needs of 3 or 4 buildings, but in this case, there will be full-time for these 3 positions. So we needed to plan the office space where they would be able to fulfill their support of those students. And in some cases, they would work with 2 to 3 students in the office. So that factored into how we would size the office space. There will be an increased number of paraprofessionals in the building. And so those folks need a place to land in the morning, a locker to store their personal possessions, and access to a computer to check in on things that they're doing for the teachers that they support throughout the day. So we are advocating that we have a shared office that would accommodate those paraprofessionals. It's not very big. It would have a counter space for a couple of computers and some lockers on the wall. In addition to these spaces, there are some support spaces, which include a sensory room and adaptive PE space, as well as some storage space that's needed for the instructional materials for the SPED programs and the support equipment. All of these take additional space beyond what would be allowed in the typical school. The impacts of the larger student population I kind of outlined here on the screen. The gym space will need to be dedicated for PE instruction. It won't be able to be used as a multi-purpose room where in a 2 or 3 section school, many times you serve lunch and breakfast when it's provided to students in that multi-purpose room. The janitor comes in, clears things off, wipes the tables down, and does a quick sweep on the floor, and PE instruction might start a little bit later in the morning. So a commons or cafeteria space is needed so that that gym can be fully dedicated to PE instruction. In addition to that, there does need to be a second PE teaching station and a second PE teacher to provide PE instruction for 550 students that would get PE twice a week. Because we need that dedicated gym, we've looked at the commons and cafeteria space and have determined there's an additional square footage request, so not a large amount, but to accommodate and try to keep it to 4 lunch periods for the 550 kids. We need a little bit of extra space. You do see on the screen, I did provide some statistics on how many of the kids or students will be eligible or qualify for free and reduced lunch program, and it's fairly high. All of the South Triad elementary schools are Title I schools. Title I is a program that if a school has 50% or more of its students that are eligible for a free and reduced lunch program through the federal Title I program, then it is deemed a Title I school and gets some additional support for staffing and some special programs related to kids that are in lower economic areas of the country. This slide, the things that are in red, I'll apologize. Oops, let me go back. There we go. Sorry, my apologies. This is an updated slide from what was in your packet. I had an operator error and neglected to save correctly my presentation on this. And just to kind of give you the context related to the larger enrollment, the space implications with 7 sections of each grade, kindergarten through 4th grade, there will be 35 classrooms. And then we're planning 1 pre-K or kindergarten classroom, hoping to accommodate or provide space for the federally encouraged preschool programs that many kids in certain areas of the South Triad don't have access to preschool. And in addition to those classrooms, we have the 2 self-contained SPED classrooms, those intensive needs. that I spoke to earlier. And again, looking at the gym as needs a second teaching station, and the idea that the cafeteria common space, we're looking to try to keep that to 4 lunch periods. My apologies as I go backwards. So the breakdown of the additional space needs that we're requesting, there's 3,200 square feet of additional space for special education, 2,550 for the gym space for physical education, and 1,750 for the additional space we need in the commons for the cafeteria function. And that brings us to a total square footage of 7,500 square feet for this request for the ARP Elementary replacement project. I'd be happy to address any questions you might have. And Shelby, there may be things that you want to add to what I've presented.
I just have one. Does this become enhanced space or just?
Mr. Chairman, I can walk through the summary sheet. This will be allowable square footage. Yes.
That's what I thought reading about.
Yeah. She brought up the pre-kindergarten room. We don't necessarily kindergarten. That class space will be within that allowable square footage. It will drive capacity just as if it was a regular kindergarten room. They can then use it as they need to. However, get out in the future, capacity issue that will have to be used
For a kindergarten.
Yeah. So let me walk through just a few of these items I have that she didn't cover. I think she covered an awful lot that's on the summary sheet, so I will skip through that pretty close. I just want to cover a few things that I did as I tried to evaluate this exception request in accordance with our rules and regulations, trying to accommodate their needs. When it came to special education, I spent quite a bit of time looking at typical 300 plus or minus student elementary schools and evaluating how much special ed space was in that. That is something that we track in our name system. Planning put some really nice sheets together for me. I looked on a statewide basis, and then I really looked specifically at Laramie 1 and how they're using their sped space, how much they had. So I looked for a regular sized elementary school, and then I looked at the 4 schools along with ARP that will be going offline. Now, she mentioned the students from Hebert will actually be going over to Cole. But as I looked at everything, I still looked at those 5 buildings, existing ARP, Bain, Hebert, Fairview, and Lebhart, to see how much special ed space they have in buildings that they are going to lose. I took that into consideration. I looked at the amount of existing sped space district-wide. And then I just looked at the additional space requests for a 550 student facility with higher than normal sped needs. She's walked through basically the rest of the page, what that space will be used for sped, gymnasium space, and then also the commons area. If we move to the top of page 70, the school facility, I'm sorry, I'm going to step back. What I had covered. Yeah, the School Facility Commission adequacy standards allow for exceptions for special education programs to ensure the facility meets the special needs of students enrolled in that school as identified in their individual educational plans. So we have that in our adequacy standards in chapter 3. And we get to the top of page 70, another one of our adequacy standards is that it must require new facilities to be able to provide instructional space sufficient to deliver the required educational programs. So along those lines, they have to be able to run 2 PE classes all the time in order to get through that many students. So, that drives some additional square footage, 2,500. That gym big enough to accommodate 2 teaching stations. And then, so that takes our Original allowable square footage is based on the 550 student capacity of 72,050 plus the additional 7,500 square feet to 80,300 square feet will be our total allowable square footage. The district is not asking for any additional funding. They believe that they can bring this in with the budget that they have. The potential consequences of rejecting this exception would be that the school would lack adequate space to deliver the educational programming to meet old special education students. The recommendation, the state construction department recommends that the school facility commission grant an exception in this instance to the allowable square foot calculator and approve an additional 7,500 square feet to provide an allowable 80,315 square feet to accommodate special needs and delivery of the required educational programming in the new ARP elementary school. Any further comments?
Do I have a motion?
Okay.
Board, do I have a motion?
And Mr. Chairman, move the school facilities commission for the state construction departments. Recommended motion is read.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Discussion, since you already vote, all those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion is approved. We now go to item 7. Laramie County School District exception request for increased allowable square footage for the new 5-6 elementary school. Administrator Carlson. Again, Laramie County School District 1.
Mr. Chairman, again, this is a project that was approved by the commission on November 7th, 2024. The commission approved 650 student capacity and an allowable square footage of 86,054 square feet for the new 5-6 elementary school. And with that, I would turn it over again to Sally Means to walk through the presentation for the needs of the 5-6, which do differ a little bit from what we did. Go ahead, Sally.
Thank you, Shelby. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, my presentation included in your packet is similar but different for the 5-6. Need to cover kind of the same basic areas that factor into the requests that we've got before you today. In terms of the Mercer study, the conclusion was, and the recommendation was to take the 5th and 6th grades from 10 South Triad, and that's all 10 South Triad elementary schools, and combine them into one 5th, 6th grade intermediate elementary school. As Shelby indicated earlier, the 650 and the 86,000 square feet are involved. This is the slide similar to what you saw on the earlier presentation. The lower portion, though, is specific to the 5th, 6th grade. In looking at the WDE enrollment numbers and comparing the SPED enrollment for the 5th and 6th grade only in the South Triad elementary schools, there were 149 students with IEPs out of the 591. So that percentage factors up a bit. It is higher, that it's like 25.2% of the students that will need additional support in their learning through elementary school or in the 5th and 6th grade. The spaces that we needed to add or enhance the size are very similar to what I described in the art school in terms of there'll be additional staff and equipment and mobility devices, the resource rooms. This too will need 2 self-contained special ed classrooms. It will have additional full-time student services staff similar to ARP, and we'll have the adaptive PE and sensory room, as well as additional space for the paraprofessionals that will work with the special needs students. The impact of a larger student population again, is very similar to our, the need for a dedicated gym with a second teaching station. And again, looking to accommodate 4 lunch periods to accommodate the 650 students. In this school, we'll have 15 sections of 5th grade, 15 sections of 6th grade, for a total of 30 classrooms, plus the 2 self-contained intensive need classrooms, for a total of 32 classrooms in this building. And that's because the teacher-student ratio bumps to 25-1, as compared to the 16-1 that we're working at the lower elementary. And again, that second teaching station is really important for the physical education.
Valley, we seem to, well,
Hello?
Here we go. There's a slight glitch in the internet. It's
Okay.
being dragging a little bit.
Were you able to hear my rundown of this slide about the number of classrooms?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, great. Similar, the gym situation with the second teaching station, and again, a minor amount of square footage that we need for the commons and cafeteria. And I think I've gone through that. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I got off track here. I'm going backwards with my mouse. There we go. On this school, for the 5-6 elementary school, we're requesting 3,500 square feet of additional space for special education, 2,550 for physical education for the gym, and the common space increase of 4,500 square feet, for a total request of 6,500 square feet for this school. And I would add the comment, in this request, this particular facility, the district has a prototype 5-6 school. Meadowlark Elementary School was the first combined 5-6 elementary, and then recently Coyote Ridge, which opened last fall, was built. We kept our eye on what the impact would be to a prototype school in the planning, looking to minimize any kind of design impacts as we created the recipe for the building with the space program and the ed spec. So I thought I would kind of preempt the question, why is this square footage request smaller than the other square footage request? And it has to do with working with the prototype, and there's a factor of the 24 students in a classroom versus 16 that does factor in to the overall square footage of the building. Any questions?
Are there any questions, board members? Questions? Any questions? I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll walk through the rest of this. Real
Okay.
quick, there's just a couple other things I'd like to point out.
Oh, okay.
The only other items when I was evaluating the sped space on this facility that was above and beyond what I looked at with Park Elementary was I did take some time to look at their 2 prototype schools, that being Meadowlark and Coyote Ridge. One of the first school tours I did when I got back is Andy Knapp and Shannon Burdick took Dell and I out to Coyote Ridge to walk that. And we spent quite a bit of time looking at the special ed space there, which had to be actually added after the fact by change order. And you know, a lot of the inadequacies of that space, and I could see the sizes that they had versus the sizes they were asking for. Very so I also took that into consideration with my evaluation as I make the recommendation to approve this request. My recommended motion, the State Construction Department recommends that the School Facility Commission grant an exception in this instance to the allowable square foot calculator and improve an additional 6,500 square feet to provide an allowable 92,554 square feet to accommodate special needs and delivery of the required educational programming.
I would entertain a motion now. Move the school facility commissioner move to approve the state construction department's recommended. Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? We have a question?
And I don't know, probably, maybe not germane to the final decision here, but kind of falls in there. I mean, we might need your input on this. So my quick math up here, which I don't know the real numbers of Cheyenne are, there's a disproportionate percentage of children in that South Triad, which means other schools have significant percentages. Manner, like under 10%. Are there children being shifted to that area, or is it just happened demographically that the children that happen to live in that, which I think is maybe a socioeconomically depressed area, have a higher IEP rate or something?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, it's demographics for that area. And there are some things that drive that. Obviously, it's just the way it's set right now. We do have some boundary considerations coming up as these schools come online, but it's not going to affect that piece of it. That area also, because of availability and cost, honestly, is the only area of town we're seeing any growth in. Currently, we're actually seeing less, if maybe even negative growth in the other parts of town because of the costs raising. So that is mostly demographic.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any further questions? Any further questions? Since you're ready to vote, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion is approved.
Thank you.
We'll now go back to action item 5. Which is request for adoption most cost-effective remedy for Laramie County School District number 1, East High School.
Chairman, if you just give me a minute, Sally's disconnecting so I can share my screen.
Go ahead and try to share.
Thank you, Sally.
Okay, I'm ready. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Chairman, so this is a request for the adoption of the most cost-effective remedy for Laramie County School District number 1, East High School. In the 2023 capacity schedule, East High School was identified with the current capacity of 112.42% and a projected capacity in 2051 of 81%. As you're aware, capacity greater than 100% in the 8-year projection requires the department to conduct the most cost-effective remedy study. Our intention and outcome from the merger is to optimize the benefits relative to cost. In early 2024, the State Construction Department entered into an agreement with FEA to perform the most cost-effective remedy study for East High School. FEA guided and facilitated the process, ensuring a thorough and collaborative working environment between the district and the state. They performed all the evaluation and analysis and prepared the final report. The objective of the study was to address the identified capacity needs, align with the statewide uniform adequacy standards, provide a sustainable long-term solution for East High School, balance benefits, cost, efficiency, and educational outcomes. And then just ensure the facility can deliver those quality educational services. With that, I would introduce Maureen Raskowski with FEA. Also, Rich Merrill is here with FEA today. And I'll have Maureen give you a presentation on the paper.
Thank you, Administrator Carlson, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioners. As she indicated, FEA completed the most cost-effective remedy study for the East High School. Go to the next slide. And as was indicated, the trigger for this merger was capacity. And it is over capacity now and predicted to be over capacity in the future. And if you go to the next slide, as we looked at the issues that are going there, the overcapacity issues are causing overcrowding in the cafeteria, some parking challenges, and the enrollment projections are showing continued overcapacity. And our analysis indicated that the need is 413 additional seats to meet that additional capacity. Next slide. So we look at both non-construction and construction alternatives when we start the analysis, and the non-construction alternatives were not fully satisfy the capacity needs. So we settled on 3 construction activities to further analyze. So we had replaced existing East High School on existing site, build a new East High School on a new site, and then an addition and select space reconfiguration remedy. And that remedy is looking at, to fulfill the 413 seats, about 30,000 added gross square feet. That would be 17 classrooms, increasing cafeteria size, increasing CTE labs and other common space, and then about 9,000-ish reconfigured space where we don't really need that additional space, but it's just not functioning the way it should. And so just a little bit of reconfiguration, and that would be primarily with the kitchen, the cafeteria, and an old pool area. So that is what that remedy is made up of. If you go to the next slide. So the Mercer study focuses in on looking at cost and effectiveness. And on the cost side, we look at both your first time costs, your capital construction costs, and then also the ongoing costs across a 20-year period. And you can see the 3 potential remedies and the ramifications. And the analysis here showed that addition and select space reconfiguration has the lowest first time costs and the lowest ongoing costs over the 20-year period. And so next we wanted to look at that effectiveness. And if you go to the next slide, one of the areas, the ways that we look at effectiveness with these Mercer studies is to conduct a choosing by advantages process, which is a process that focuses in on looking at the advantages of one remedy versus the other, using factors that are important to the district, to the state. And so we conduct workshops and work together with both the state and the district. You can see there are some must requirements that all remedies have to meet. And then we have factors that are important. Some of the factors here were, what's the program disruption? Can we limit program disruption? What's the impact to the parking area post remedy, since parking is already a challenge? Reducing excess square footage, so making sure that we are doing the most sound reconfiguration of that space. And so when we looked at this, and we're focusing on what the advantages are, if you go to the next slide, this choosing by advantage analysis showed us that the addition and select space reconfiguration had the highest advantage score, which means it represented the highest advantage across the other remedies and is therefore considered more effective. And so when you put those two together and you graph that, the addition and select space reconfiguration was identified as the Mercer. It is the lowest cost with the most advantages. So with that, if there are any questions or you want to add anything, Administrator Carlson?
So I want to repeat if you have specific questions of FBA. All right, so we did look at, FEA took a look at various enrollment projection methodologies. What we see in that graphic they showed you, I've also got it here, is that initially there's some decline, but then it seems to stabilize and then it starts a slow uptick at the end of our projections. So we are looking at, we want that to be at 90%. That number, so that drove 1,733 students and 413 additional seats. We did look ahead. Our highest capacity number made that 90%, which drove that 73. We then looked backwards and said, okay, are we building it adequately fast and fit? Next sheet, you can see those different enrollment projections. You can see that in general, A lot of them are dropping off. And then FEA does go through and do some fact checking to make sure all of those graphs look good when they used. And then you can see that enrollment projection that shows it kind of declining for a little bit, stabilizing. It's a slow increase again. Maureen mentioned the 3 different remedies for a new East High School on the existing site, looking at 290,500 square feet. Initial design and construction cost $224.7 million roughly. If we look at the new East High School and the new site, same square footage, but we're looking at about a cost of about $214.4 million. And then if we look at East High School addition with select space reconfiguration, additional space for general classrooms, science classrooms to accommodate 413 students, additional cafeteria space, expanded CTE industrial lab space, and an allowance for additional restrooms and common space proportionate to the added square footage. So building addition, 36,247 square feet. Space reconfiguration, to look at the existing kitchen, the existing cafeteria, and the old pool space. Reconfiguration, 9,624 square foot. Initial design and construction cost, $3.9 million. Maureen walked you through the choosing by advantages process. I would note where I put the advantages scores down below. The new East High School and the existing site, that should actually be 109. And the new East High School and the new site should be 154. Got those 2 numbers backwards in that presentation there, or in that document. And then East High School addition with select space reconfiguration has an advantage score of 183. Then you can see the present value when they took a 20-year look. Looked at inflating those numbers as they went out every year for operations and maintenance costs, as well as when the actual construction dollars would come in, and then they bring it back to current dollars for us to do an apples to apples comparison. You'll see the graph that Maureen showed you that shows the potential remedy comparison for cost benefit analysis, and you see that addition and select space reconfiguration is the lowest dollar for the highest advantage score. So the a couple other advantages of this option, it closely meets the capacity needs with significantly less effort than constructing a brand new building, and it also has the least impact to the community for short-term construction and their impacts. I think in the long term too, it keeps it very close to their other external field capacities. Their natatorium is there, so it stays aligned with those up on that side. So this Mercer remedy could include expansion of the footprint by either infilling some courtyards. It could be expanding or modifying around the external perimeter of the building. It could be by adding a second floor. So there are a number of combinations of those that could be used. So if you look there on page 57, in the different colors, you can see some of the options that we kind of considered and talked about where you could be doing additions and or adding additional floors to accommodate this. That's really beyond the means of the Mercer. That's beyond what they were hired to do. So we want to leave that design and the best option to the architect and the design team and start to lay this out on how they best align their educational programs with existing educational classrooms in the building and build it out for their full programming in the best way possible. Therefore, as Director McConey mentioned earlier, for the 2026 budget session, we are only asking for design dollars. There'll be right around $4 million that we're going to request so that we can let the architect and the best design it and then what those related costs will be. At the June 2nd, 2024 Laramie County School District #1 Board of Trustees meeting, the board voted unanimously to concur with addition and select space reconfiguration remedy as the cost-effective remedy for Laramie County School District Number 1 East High School. Adoption of the Mercer study for Laramie County School District 1 allows the facility plan to be updated and the state construction department to make a request for those design funds this upcoming legislative session. Potential results, I just walked through. If we can get adoption of it, we can move forward with that space or funding request, excuse me. If no Mercer is adopted, then we'll have to be, we'd be able to move forward, and we would have to go back to the drawing board and decide how to best move forward. Recommendation, the State Construction Department recommends that the School Facilities Commission adopt as its written determination FEA study entitled Most Cost-Effective Remedy Study for East High School, dated May 22nd, 2025, and the remedy and select space reconfiguration as the most cost-effective remedy. This remedy is in the best financial and educational interest of the state, taking into consideration the most efficient and cost-effective approach in order to deliver quality educational services and address building and facility needs, having taken into consideration the effects of the proposed activity on the local community. Andy, do you want to make any comments towards it, or?
I don't have any comments. I think
Okay.
looking at the options that are proposed, obviously we've seen the designer. A couple of things. We're at 100% capacity, a little over in our central triad in our high school, and we're at 90 or 91% in our south triad, which is growing. So a boundary shift to move those students would probably not be a great option. And so I think an addition is probably what's needed. And it is a campus. All of our high schools and junior highs over the years, we've been able to consolidate those into a campus where the junior high and high school are on the same, essentially same area, which helps us as far as our parking goes and for athletic events. And this, an option of even a new school over there would then separate that junior high from the high school, as well as our new pool that we just attached to it. So I think I thought the Mercer study was pretty productive and solid.
One other comment I might add, but the district is taking really good care of it. So well, our FCI school on the building is really good. So, it's got a lot of life left. Good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'd entertain a motion.
We approve the SFC approved our recommendation as written.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Further discussion. Scott.
A question for Andy. Then if Central's at 100%, will there be possibly future issues there on its capacity if students can be shifted and stuff?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, that in a previous Mercer study, 2019, that led into these most current Mercer studies, it showed an addition of, I believe it was 6, maybe incorrect, a few years ago, 6 classrooms on Central, but we've been pretty steady right in there around 100%. So there's not a big need for capacity just yet. And we're not seeing much growth in that triad. It's fairly well landlocked between the base and the rural properties and the center of town. So there's not a lot of area for growth in that triad other than rural properties.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Since you're ready to vote on the motion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. So moved. Next item, item 8. Teton School District Number 1, request to use emergency funds for the construction of a single occupancy restroom at Sunmont Innovations High School. Administrator Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Little background on this request from Teton County School District 1. They sent us a letter requesting the use of emergency funds restroom. During the 2025 legislative session, the Wyoming legislature passed Senate File 62, sex designated facilities, which went into effect upon signature on March 3rd, 2025. The bill amended state statute 21-3137 to require public school children to use restrooms that align with their sex at birth, and for school districts to provide reasonable accommodations to any person who does not wish to use a multiple occupancy restroom, changing room, or sleeping quarters in accordance with the designation required. The approved legislation was passed. It had no funding associated with it, so there was no funding provided to make any of these changes. Teton County School District is requesting emergency funds to make this change, and they need to so that they can be compliant with law. They have had recommendations to get this accommodation in this particular school, which does not have a single occupancy restroom in it, and they want to have it open for the 25-26 school. They've got a very tight construction. The commission recognizes that emergencies may occur with respect to the adequacy of buildings and facilities, with which immediately and substantially impact the ability of the district to provide educational programs required by law. Districts respond to emergencies in order to mitigate damage to the district's ability to provide educational programs required by law by first utilizing insurance coverage, which of course this would apply for an insurance, and then major building and facility repair and replacement payments. Emergency funding for temporary measures may become necessary. The School Facilities Division does not believe that this request meets the requirements for the use of emergency funds, and has recommended that Teton District utilize its major maintenance funds. Our main concern is the depletion of those emergency funds. So if we have a district who say loses boilers in their school in the winter, and it's a big bill, these costs are going up, we've got to have money there to address those issues. Schools open to the children. So within the definition of major building and facility repair, major maintenance may be used for code compliance. A new statutory definition for major maintenance code compliance, effective July 1st of 25, expands the definition of major maintenance to include upgrades that are mandated by law, regulation, or code. Senate File 62 establishes a new state law which places responsibility on the district to meet these requests. The bill authorizes a cause of action against a school district, parents, or legal guardians of students enrolled in and physically attending public school districts for non-compliance with the Act. Furthermore, the International Building Code requires accessible unisex or family toilet rooms, assembly, and mercantile occupancy, where a total of 6 or more toilet fixtures are required. And I think we would all agree most of our schools function as assembly areas and toilet fixtures within them. State construction department cannot anticipate how many of these similar type of requests we may receive. We do want to protect those emergency funds and not deplete that account. Teton County School District 1 originally requested to use major maintenance funds, and at the time, the state construction department denied its use, necessitating the request to use emergency funds. Upon review of the changes to the definitions of major maintenance effective in July of 25, we believe that the use of major maintenance funds for code and statutory building standards compliance is proper. The design is estimated to be about $12,000. And then the construction estimate they have is $87,356 from Westward Construction. According to the 2024 Major Maintenance 680 report, Teton County School District 1's major maintenance balance on June 30th, 24 was $1,309,728. And they received $2,309,245. That's without the 10% major maintenance included during this past year to add into that According to Teton County School District 1's capital improvement program, fiscal year 24-25, it projected planned projects at amount of $1,255,722. However, it appears that the CIP report that only $630,722 was expended. We won't know for sure what they've expended because that would be on their what they had planned. But districts run into other issues with their schools all the time that drive major maintenance spending. So we won't have those numbers until the 680 report is reported back to us at the end of July. So it's hard for us to know exactly where that balance sits in that account. Teton County School District will be receiving a total of $3,468,932 in major maintenance funding for the year 25-26, which is an increase of $1,159,687. This is based on the legislation that was recently passed during the 25 session for the increase in allowable square footage payment from 115% to 135%, as well as the increase in the CRV or current replacement value multiplier from 2% to 2.5%. Potential results with the SFC's approval, Teton County School District 1 will begin design and construction using their major maintenance funding, allowing them to move forward quickly and to be in compliance with the law by the beginning of 25-26. The School Facilities Commission could also potentially pursue approving Teton County School District 1's request to utilize emergency funds. If the SFC declines to approve the use of either major maintenance or emergency funding to address this issue for Teton County School District 1, the district will have to find another source of funds to meet its obligation under the Act or otherwise risk liability for non-compliance. And with that, I do believe that we have Superintendent Chapman online. If she'd like to address the commission.
Thank you very much, Chairman Tarter and commissioners. Good to see you. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of context for this request. We did request the use of major maintenance when it was first approved in maybe April, and it was denied. And at that point, we were prepared to use our major maintenance funds because we were on such a short timeline. And when it was denied, we had to do some alternatives, including allowing individuals that requested the use of a single stall restroom to leave campus. And so it was impacting whether it was an employee, an agent coming in to work with one of our students, or a student themselves. It was impacting the educational environment and our opportunity to follow the law, quite frankly. And when our major maintenance request was denied, we spoke with the select committee, and Administrator Carlson said, maybe you should submit for emergency funding. So with that is the reason we submitted for emergency funding. And I appreciate the opportunity to go back and use our major maintenance. However, in the time that the major maintenance request was made and then denied, our board went through the capital improvement plan and has plans for the funding that we have available. And as you know, it was requested that when we moved to quarterly payments, that we should always have a balance of $2 million. And there are times in which we don't have a balance of $2 million in our major maintenance account. And appreciate again the cap coming up a little bit higher. However, our board has already approved all the projects mapped out for the capital improvement projects. And quite frankly, this is an unfunded mandate that our board had no decision in determining, and we would not choose to use $100,000 toward a single stall restroom at Summit Innovations. And I would assume that there are other school districts that had the same issue, that they would have come forward already. And I request respectfully that you take a look at your emergency fund balance, which I believe is in the 4 millions, and grant this approval per the local school board's request. And given the fact that we use our major maintenance funding appropriately, we have a plan, and a single stall bathroom will delay that plan. And could potentially impact some of the other things that we have already planned in our capital improvement plan. So with that, I would be happy to answer any other questions. I also have Charlotte Reynolds on the line, and she is an expert in the facilities area, and she is definitely well versed in our capital improvement plan and could answer any additional questions that any of you might have.
Does anybody have any additional questions? Any additional questions? I've already asked one person to make the motion. Yes. Do it.
Yeah, based upon the situation, being recent legislation and the timeline of this project, the district's planned use of their major maintenance funds, and laws not yet in effect, I recommend the commission use SFC emergency funds not to exceed $100,000 for the new construction of a single occupancy restroom at Summit Innovations High School. Bring the facility into compliance with statutory building compliance and code before the start of the next 25-26 school year. And future projects, I think we'll address that in tab 9 as far as use of major maintenance funds.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Discussion. Since you're ready to vote, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Well,
Next item we have is item 9. Use of major maintenance funds or district request to make reasonable accommodation. That's Wyoming, changes to Wyoming statute 21-3137. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've already covered quite a significant amount of this summary sheet. And as Bree mentioned, our concern of the pooling that emergency fund and not having it available. If we get a situation that may close a school down, we want to be sure that we have funding available there to respond to that need. I'm going to move down to the last solid bullet on the page 112. So I'm still looking at using major maintenance funds to the upgrades that are mandated by law due to this current change. Prior to the SCD approving the district request for the use of major maintenance funds, emergency funds, right there, the district shall provide an application that contains the following information at a minimum: a detailed description of the circumstances giving rise to the need for a single occupancy restroom or changing room, the location of all facilities affected by the need for a single occupancy restroom, the district's proposed remedy or action taken by the district that was determined to be immediately necessary to temporarily resolve the single occupancy restroom situation, and why it is or was the most cost-effective temporary measure to remediate the need, including all of the alternatives that were considered. Provide us with an estimate of all associated costs for the proposed permanent remedy, including estimates of alternative remedies considered, bids or estimates that they have received from contractors to address the proposed remedy for single occupancy restroom, the availability of the funds from the major maintenance building and facility repair and replacement account, information to support that the remedy proposed by the district is the most cost-effective means addressing the need for a single occupancy restroom, and then any other reasonable documentation the district may have they would like us to consider as we look at their request to use major maintenance funds. So the SCD will then track every request that we get and our approvals that we get, and we'll report back to the commission. We have a good feel of what we see coming in and the expenditure of major maintenance towards these facilities. The use of major maintenance funds will allow the districts to move projects for single occupancy restrooms forward more quickly than having to come before the commission every time we get one of these. And should a district have inadequate major maintenance funds to deploy the remedy, or it would drop their balance dangerously low, the SCD will consider the use of emergency funds, which will come before the SFC for approval. Potential results: with the SFC's approval, the SCD will be able to work with the districts that have a need for single occupancy restrooms or changing rooms to approve the utilization of major maintenance funds and report back to the commission. Without SFC approval, SCD will continue addressing these issues as on a case-by-case basis, and we'll bring them forward as we need to. So our SCD recommendation: the State Construction Department recommends that the School Facilities Commission approve the State Construction Department to work with districts regarding the use of major building and facility repair and replacement funds for construction of single occupancy restrooms or changing school districts, provided that information is submitted as required and the project is reviewed and approved by the State Construction Department. The department will report back to the School Facilities Commission on the single occupancy restroom projects funded in this manner. That,
Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd just like to add to that, we did bring this issue up with the select committee on school facilities. So I think this is another way for us to track as the commission and department, provide that information back to the committee. I'm sure that's going to be of interest to them.
Any questions? I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the commission approve the State Construction Department's recommendation as indicated.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Discussion, since you're ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Same sign. So moved. Next item is 10, which is the Washakie County School District Number 2, Kansas State, request for unanticipated funding for 10 State Elementary, Middle, and High School school demolition project.
Chairman, just so you apologize, you have an extra document on your desk that indicates for 10, so just want, you don't have one?
You know.
You do now? Do you need the next?
Thank you for sharing.
You're gonna show me.
It's always sick. Your timing is perfect.
No.
Here, you can have two.
I probably have one. I probably still do.
Oh.
Which one's got the answers? I want the answer key.
Okay, let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you were stating, this is for the K-12 school in 10 Slate County School District 2. This project goes back all the way to 2015 when the Mercer study was complete for replacement. So it's been a lot of time coming, and it was appropriated funds in several different budget sessions, but primarily we got design funds in a budget session and some design funds and construction and demo funds in the 2022 budget session. That was the meat and potatoes of the funding for the project. We rolled the asbestos investigation and abatement design into the design contract, just to help with coordination and have them work with the documents. And the design firm of record is Arette Design out of Sheridan. And they hired a company by the name of American Engineering Testing and to do the investigation and prepare the report. Everything was bid off that report. Shortly after we got started with the abatement, Department of Environmental Quality showed up on site, and they noticed that there were some suspicious looking things that they didn't feel like had been tested. So because the consultant for American Engineering Testing is out of state, we brought in a consultant that works for us on a lot of other projects to have him perform some additional testing. And what they discovered is there were some things that were overlooked in the building in regards to asbestos. Primarily, there was a coating on one side of the CMU masonry walls. And there was a substantial amount of that. It gets very, can't think of the word I'm looking for, but it's a difficult process to remove that coating without cross-contaminating a lot of it. So the containment area has to be the whole building. Pretty much prevents us from doing any selective demolition or partial demolition until the abatement is fully complete. With that being said, we also had to go in and remove as much of the contents of that building as we possibly could, so that didn't become cross-contaminated, which would have really increased the cost because it was substantial. The amount of material that we were taking out of there that was testing positive. So we've been waiting for quite a while to get a grip on the full scope of what needed to be done there. We've been trying to find abatement contractors that would be willing to team up, because there's a rather large portion of site work that needs to be completed once this building's removed. So we can't complete the whole project. Play fields, sidewalks, retention ponds, all that stuff where the building currently is, that needs to be done as soon as it's demoed. So the project that we were anticipating being done this fall actually is going to spill probably well into next spring. So we went in, we performed all the additional testing, and we just received, I think, about a day and a half, number from the general contractor, which is Courthouse Construction, who's overseeing the demolition. And we've listed all those costs towards the bottom of the sheet. We're going to vet through these costs and take a hard look at them to make sure that they're reasonable and appropriate. And with that being said, this request is going to be an amount up to request, but we will perform our diligence to make sure that the unit pricing and the quantification of those things are appropriate. The action item today is to consider whether Washington County School District 2's request for the School Facility Commission to authorize up to $1,418,676 from the School Facility Commission's 21-22 and 23-24 unanticipated fund appropriation to be moved onto the 10 Sleep K-12 demolition project. Potential results are, if the School Facility Commission approves the request, the district will have sufficient funds in the project budget to proceed with the demolition and remaining site work, including all costs and contingencies. If the commission does not approve Washington County School District 2's request, the district may be unable to complete the project. The State Construction Department recommends the School Facility Commission approve the transfer of funds from the appropriate unanticipated account in an amount up to $1,418,676 for the 10 Sleep K-12 demolition project.
Okay, I've entertained a motion to approve. So would.
I move the School Facilities Commission approve the State Construction Department recommended motion as written.
I need a second.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Discussion.
I have just a question, because we're looking at taking those unanticipated funds from 2 different years. Would we wouldn't wipe out the 21-22, which is $1 million. But what we have left in those accounts, would we split the cost between the 2 accounts so that we don't zero out?
I think that's an excellent question. Chairman, the way things balance out on our unanticipated is all the projects that put initially to to the bucket of unanticipated funds is based on the 6% ask. If it's early on in the process of performing that work, like if on the projects that were just appropriated funds, we try not to exceed the 6% value for each project, knowing that if we do, they're dipping into somebody else's potential need. But we don't know what those needs are. But as projects come offline and they're completed, and we know they're no longer hit that unanticipated account, we rebalance and redistribute whatever's left in that bucket proportionately to the projects that could get it. To let us know what would their share now be, considering this amount of projects has already been completed and they're not going to need it.
6% of every project that's still hanging out there.
Typically, yes. But what I would say is, and it's been about a month and a half since I ran the numbers on this, because when I first found out about the issue there in Washington too, I immediately went in and I checked those unanticipated. And it's been a while, but I believe in just the 22 general session, or that's the 23-24 budget session, the proportionate share of the remaining projects that haven't been completed for this project was slightly north of $2 million, even though that exceeds the original 6% of the appropriation, simply because a lot of other projects have been completed. So it's been a while since I've had the opportunity to check it, but I know that their balance in that, or their proportionate share of that account, hasn't gone down. It can only go up as other projects are completed. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a look at that 20 general session, or the 21-22 biennium, to see if there are any other projects there, because if there's not, I would like to just clean that account out, zero it out, before I dip into the other one that does still. And that's the reason why I didn't break those amounts out for you. I didn't have exact dollar values. I didn't have time to update the spreadsheets that we look at to see what the appropriate and relatively proportionate availability.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Sorry, it might have been TMI, but
Yeah.
it gets a little fun.
Any further discussion, any questions? Since
I have a question.
Okay, Tom.
This probably, back to Mr. Rexis, it sounds like there was some tests that were not completed or not done, if I'm fully understanding, on full areas. Has the insurance companies, has there been any discussion with the designer on this and participating? The company who came in and did this, with regards to any participation on their behalf, or their insurance company or anything like that?
Good question, Commissioner Ferens. We haven't gotten that far in the process yet. We just finally managed to get the means and the dollar value for the remedy. I think those discussions are forthcoming, but our efforts so far have been focused on just getting this project done and getting it remedied. I believe there is a discussion to be had, and we're probably going to employ a third-party independent hygienist to advise us on whether or not it's reasonable that those particular asbestos-containing materials were missed, or if that's something that should have been tested and should have been included. I think there's a ways we have to go yet to determine exactly what that conversation looks
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Just relating to that, that is one of those things that's a little bit tough because the abatement, of course, is going to cost what the abatement costs. Certainly, there should be a refund on some of the fees if they should have found it, but did it increase the cost? You know, if the contractor's being reasonable and fair in their adjustment, was there really any increase in cost beyond what would have been there other than should have been funded? So it's kind of feels complicated when you get into that sometimes.
Commissioner Compton, Chairman, typically in situations that involve errors and omissions, what we like to do is take a look at consequential. And those are the types of considerations we like participation. But it gets a little bit complicated because there's, I believe, a reasonable amount of errors and omissions that you would expect on every. Where that crosses the line, I think, is part of the discussion. But I think it's going to take us a minute to fully realize what those consequences are.
Any further discussion? Since you're ready to vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. So moved. This time we will, if there's any public comments, we will entertain those now and they cannot go more than 5 minutes. Does anybody have any public comments? Any public comments? Any public comments? Sensing none, that's over. I would now make a recommendation that we have a motion to move into an executive session.
That we move
Um,
into.
Certainly. I don't know that that's necessary, but I don't think we need that today. It just
We
was
don't
on the
need an
agenda in
executive
case we need
session?
it.
I mean, we got an attorney that we can't sit here. Oh, man. That's amazing. Okay, we do not need an executive session. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. I think we got a lot done. I think we did a great job for everybody. And I now entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we adjourn tonight.